Okay, in this video we are going to turn that 55-gallon poly drum into a vertical garden planter with a passive worm composter in the center. So stay tuned right after this. Okay, so we're going to turn this 55-gallon drum into a vertical garden planter system, and I have the drums, so I need to do something with them because I'm not using them anymore to catch rainwater in the main part of the house that I have here. I used to catch rainwater here and then run that rainwater all the way down to my greenhouse, which created pressure, and so I was able to hook up faucets and everything. I scrapped that whole idea because there's too much involved with it, and the water freezes in the winter in these barrels, and if you don't drain them down, they freeze, they split. I ended up turning one of the barrels into a composter generally because it's split, and there's really not much else you could do with it other than use it for planting or composting or something like that. But with this system here, we are basically going to turn this into a vertical garden planter, and that's basically what that is we're going to put pockets in the side of the drum, and we're going to put as many as 40 to 50 of them, depending on how I lay it out. And we're going to make it so you can grow your lettuces, your basils, your thyme, all the simple things that you need for your general cooking. We're not looking to really grow huge tomato plants in here or pepper plants, though the very top part of the barrel here, you can do whatever you want with it. If you want to put tomato plants in there, you're more than welcome to do that. But the purpose for this drum, in my particular case, is to grow all the simple things that we use, like basils and thyme and, you know, the spices, the oreganos and lettuces and those kind of things that are not going to grow incredibly huge, but they're necessary to grow one way or the other. And you can grow a lot of that on a barrel like this. You can literally fill this barrel up with all kinds of herbs and spices. So what we're going to do is, generally the way I'm designing this barrel is that I'm not going to do it conventionally like you see a lot of other YouTube videos have them set up. And I don't have a problem with them. It's just I want to do something a little bit different, and I need something that's going to work with what I already have. So I prefer to keep my barrels on the ground, and that's the end of it. You just want to make sure wherever you put this barrel and fill it with dirt, you just want to make sure that that's where it's going to stay. Because moving it is probably going to be a little bit difficult once it's filled with soil and it's wet and everything. I don't want to put holes on the bottom of the barrel like you see most planters are, you know, that they use online. They're drilling a whole bunch of holes on the bottom and they let it drain out of the bottom. I don't really want to do that, because if I decide to put that planter over here anywhere on my sidewalk or anything like that, or on my driveway, what happens is it stains. It literally begins to stain your sidewalks, and I really don't want to do that. I'd rather the water just come out of the side and I can put a tube in there or drain it off somewhere else, and when it rains and the water that washes through, that takes the leachie out with it, takes it away from my sidewalk. It's not going to stain my sidewalks anymore. And believe me when I tell you, it will stain your sidewalks. I've already stained these. I power washed them. I still can't get some of the stains out from prior years of leachie from the soil going onto the sidewalk and just staining it. It does happen. So I may want to put my barrels over here. What I plan on doing is leaving a portion of the barrel on the bottom so it can retain some water. The very center of that barrel is going to be where the worm composter is going to go down the center. Now, the purpose of the worm composter is so you can put your food scraps, your cut grass, mix it in with a little brown soil, a little bit of this, get that all partly going. Put your red worms in there, your red wigglers. You could use regular earthworms. A lot of people tell you to use red wigglers. You get earthworms in your yard, or you go into a leaf pile in the back. You see all those worms swimming around in it. Just take handfuls of those and throw them in there. That's fine. They eat the leaves and everything anyway. We're going to take this lid inside part off. We're going to cut that out. And this is going to be the false bottom. On the inside of the barrel, it's going to create that reservoir of water down below, either for self-wicking or just simply to, so the water is not draining directly out of the bottom of the barrel, but out the side where I already have a hole. Unfortunately, a lot of these barrels were already tapped and drilled, and so I want to kind of utilize it that way. Now, you can go with either 4-inch or 6-inch. I can go either way with it. I have fittings for 4-inch, but not 6-inch. I have few 6-inch fittings, but I want to work with the 4-inch, being I already have it. All right, so enough talking on that. What we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is lay this out and cut the top of the barrel. Okay, so I marked out the drum, as you can see here, and we'll talk a little bit about those markings, and I am cutting this lid out. And I just wanted to touch base with you on the lid part, cutting it out really quickly. When you're cutting the lid, I'm using a Sawzall to cut it. Don't attempt to try to just cut it in one piece all the way around. Run the saw maybe about 3 inches and then stop, scrape away the stuff, let it cool down a second, and then recut it. If you don't do that, then the plastic will melt and bind up the blade and make it very difficult to cut. Just wanted to show you the markings on the barrel. And what I did was, as you can see, I marked it out. They're basically 8 inches apart, center to center, and then the row in the middle, you have to stagger your rows. The row in the middle is half of that, so that's 4 inches from here to here, and then 4 inches from here to here, 8 inches from here to there, 8 inches from there to there. And they're 4 inches in height from each other, each one that staggers. So I have a row of 3 going down this way, and then a row of 3 going down that way, which go very close to the bottom, and then some very close to the top. All right, so I just want to make sure I show you that. And the slot width is probably going to be 4 inches, but I'm kind of seeing if I can stretch out 3.5. So I'm going to experiment a little. When I get to the point where I'm going to show you how I stretch these out and make these holes, I'll tell you how long of a slit to make to cut it. I'm going to try one at 3.5, and if that doesn't really work, then we'll move up to 4 or maybe even 4.5 inches, but I'm trying to keep it as small as possible. That way I only have a little cup sticking out, which is ultimately what I want, and not some big, you know, intrusion, you know. Okay, so now we're cutting the slots to make these little pockets. And so I tried 3.5 inches, and it does work. It's just a little difficult to actually get the wood in there and make the pocket. I thought I was going to rip this at one point. In fact, I think I may have even. It was really close to ripping. That was basically a cut that was 3.5 inches long. So I decided to make them 4 inches long, and we'll see if that makes a difference as far as being able to stretch it out a little bit more without it ripping, or wanting to rip anyway, because you can see here it kind of wanted to rip right there, and I really had to get this pretty hot, and even, you know, in order for me to even get close to what you see here. We're going to do one together. I'm going to show you how I do it. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is make that cut. This is 4 inches from here to here. That's a 4-inch line. I am using a rotary saw or skill saw, whatever you want to call it. If you're not comfortable in using one of these saws, then I don't recommend you using this technique to make your cut. Just use a Sawzall or a hacksaw blade or something to that effect and make your cut that way. I use this because it's quicker and it leaves a little bit of a gap in there, so I can pull it out a little bit as I'm heating it up and make it so it's soft enough and easy enough for me to be able to spread that hole. So let's start with the cut. We're going to do it with a plunge cut first. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is heat this up enough so I can pull that lip out a little bit and get it started. So I'm going to be using a MAP gas torch. If you're uncomfortable using MAP gas or a torch, use a heat gun. If I had a heat gun, I'd rather use that, but this is all I have, so let's use this. You need to get it started. So what I'm doing is just using a hammer for now, just to kind of get it started so I can get the wood in there. Probably not the best way to do it. Okay. You have to have something in there so you can get the wood in there. I'm not sure if I'm losing you on camera here. So you see what it's doing? It kind of wants to pull back in. So we get it to where we want it. Like so. Ideally, to be honest with you, if you can cut multiple pieces of wood, heat it up, put your wood in there, and just let them sit there, that's what you would want to do. In my case, I just got that one piece of wood, so I got to make each one work, and I'm using a wet rag to cool it down. Now this one buckled a little bit here. And yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's not as pretty as I would have liked it to have been. But these are really thick barrels, so you know they're gonna get marred up a little bit. Now you could always use 2x4 and just make a wider cut, but I wanted to go with a smaller cut so these pockets ain't no bigger than what you see, because you really don't need anything bigger than this to grow some lettuce in here, for example. Even a tomato plant, you just need one hole for it to get in, and then after that, you're good to go. All right, so that's how I'm making my pockets on here. Okay, I just want to give you a little update. I'm working on these holes now. This is already the next day. It's taken me a couple days to do this because this is a part that's going to take a little while to do. All right, so one of the things I wanted to just bring up really quick here is you got to be really careful when you're trying to spread these around the seams. I split this on the seam, so I didn't realize it was that weak, so now this is damaged, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to repair it. I'm pretty sure I could and then maybe finish it somehow, but I really don't know at this point, so I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with this one. I should have done things a little differently. I should have started at the bottom rather than the top, because the top was a little more difficult to work. So if I started off at the bottom, I could have figured out a system that would have worked a little better. Now when you're making these holes, I find if you're going to work with a torch and do it, you're better off heating up both sides of it and start off on the inside. I'll do one with you really quick, and that way you can see how long it takes for me to do it, and then I'll try to do this with a camera in my hand, so this is going to be a little hard for me to do, but we'll give it a shot. I think I can pull it off. All right, so what I do is I go inside, and as you can see, I have the slice right there. So we want to heat all of that area right there. Not too much above it. Now, once you get it nice and warmed up, it starts to blacken. Start doing the same thing out here. You can see it's starting to convolute. Okay, so now it's really warped up, right? What we do is we just basically stick that in there, stretch it out a little bit, get it started like that, and take that out. And now you can put your thing on here like this. See how I'm using these quick grips? You want to make sure that this is straight and in the middle of the two. So if you got to move it now. And then do it like that. Then I heat it up again a little bit here. Once that's heated up, then I go on the inside and I push like that. And what it does is it stretches it out a little more. So you see how it stretches it out? And you just hold it for a minute like that, and generally it'll hold pretty good. You know, it might suck in a little bit, but okay. So I had to adjust this. I can't do it with one hand. So what I did was I put it in there. You see me push it out. I stretched it out a little bit, and then I leave this clamp on there for about 5 to 10 minutes. You want to give it, and then you know you can take it off and start the next one. Now, the easy way is to just cut several pieces of wood and just keep going along and keep doing them one by one. I don't have 7 pieces of the same kind of wood, so what I do is I wait 5 minutes and then I just move this over and I do the next one. So it takes a lot longer to do that. If you have the wood to do it, cut about 3 or 4 pieces. You can do 4 in a row at a shot or more if you want to cut more wood. You know, you can vice grip them all up, you know, just let them sit there for 5 minutes. You can bang this thing out in a day if you did it that way. Okay, so now all these slots are cut and stretched, and we're done with that part, and we're ready to start putting in the internals. Just give you a look all the way around. Yeah, I kind of messed up a couple of them. This one I tried to repair. I just not much of an option to repair that. I don't really have any leftover material like flat stuff or stock where I can put it in there and kind of mold it and then weld it on there. It's not really going to work like that, so I'll figure something out for that. I'll figure some kind of tape or something for it, but that's it. That's pretty much the way it is. Now I have 6 rows like this, 6 rows of 9 each. That comes out to 54 openings in this 55-gallon drum. So that's quite a bit of openings. That's a lot of lettuce. A lot of lettuce and a lot of thyme and oregano. All right, so I wanted to give you a look at the inner workings of it before I actually put it together, because you're not going to see what I did on the inside. And what you're seeing here is a combination between a passive worm composter, and the 2 tubes on the side are just basically going to be wicking tubes. That's basically it. I added those in afterwards because these tubes were sent to me to review them, and I was supposed to bury them next to a tree and then put a drip irrigator to it, and so here it is. I decided to use these in this unit here as a prototype to see if it actually works and how it works. So basically these are called spiral tubes. You can get them on Amazon. I'll leave you links for those tubes in the description. You can pick them up on Amazon. Basically how it works is these tubes are going to be filled with a highly absorbent material, maybe cocoa coir, or maybe something to that effect, something that's just going to really absorb water, but it's sterile. I'm hoping that it'll wick as high, as close to that. It doesn't have to quite go this high. It just really needs to come up to around here, if possible. So I don't know if that will wick that high. We'll have to see. These tubes have a, if you look really close, you can see that it's like a netting on the inside. And then it's wrapped with this spiral tube, which has something to do with hydrology, and water likes to twist its way up during capillary action. I don't know. These 2 tubes are going to wick. This one's going to be a passive worm composter, which is going to make lychee, and then hopefully try to recuperate some of that lychee and into the growing container. So this, I'm still got to drill holes in this yet. The reason why I did this is because I don't want solid soil all the way to the bottom of the composter. And what a lot of people are doing is they drill a hole through the entire container all the way to the bottom, through the bottom of the container, so you can unscrew it and then catch all your worm castings that way. I'm not necessarily designing this for worm castings. I am designing it so worms can feed off of the banana peels and all the stuff I throw in there. So yeah, they will be able to eat rather than eating the roots of my plants or something like that. So I do want to feed them. Basically, all this is a toilet flange, which I got to drill a hole in the very center just to let the leachie out. And the inside of this is just a piece of 4-inch pipe over the flange, a coupling, and then I got one of these drain caps that I used in there just to keep the worm castings and all the material above that. So this bottom part, so as it makes worm castings, the worm castings will hopefully filter down through that drained top over there, and then eventually that'll fill up with worm castings, hopefully by the end of the year, and or leachy or whatever else gets down in there. And then I'll have a good solid worm casting for next year's mix that I can mix back into the soil. The idea here is to feed the worms, you know, make worm castings in that tube. Hopefully by the end of the year it fills up with plenty of material for worm casting for next year's mix, because you're going to have to break these barrels down. No matter what barrel you use, the soil's got to come back out of that barrel and it's got to be remixed and put back in. You can't use the same soil year in and year out and expect good results. It's just not going to work. I've tried that so many times and had bad results from doing that. So no matter what you grow, you really need to rechange your soil, remix it, revitalize it, and everything else. So no matter what you build, you're going to have to go back in there and get that soil out and start all over again. And it's not that big of a deal, but it is something you're going to have to do anyway. So just keep that in mind. That's why I'm not really going too crazy with the worm composter. Just kind of trying it out. I see a lot of people incorporate this into their design. I was going to leave it out originally, but I said, I got the material to do it. I have all this just sitting around collecting mud and dirt and dust and everything else. Why not put it into here? So if I decide to use it for something else, I have the option to do that. Why not incorporate it? So that's basically how that works. Yes, I am going to probably screw this down with just two screws to tack it down, basically, so as I'm moving it around, it's not flipping all over the place. Over here is just basically a fill tube or an access tube to the water container below. So if I decide that I want to fill that water to kind of gauge how much water it actually is wicking up into the pail, I can stick a gauge in there and then see how much water is going down on warm days. So it might work out pretty good that way, but either way, I want access to the bottom of that container one way or the other. And that's what this does, okay? Over here, we got the spiral tubes. These are just basically couplings, 3-inch ABS couplings. I have them around. I have plenty of materials around. So I'm just using those. You can use whatever you want. Basically, these just go straight through the hole. That's a 3-inch hole. Go straight through, right to the bottom. On the bottom of your spiral tube, you have these inserts. You can pull these out if you want. Basically, that's all it is. Has an insert on it, which is a great idea. These blue things are really nothing more than the cutout circles that were from my core hole drills, and then I just put them in here, and then that way this thing has something kind of stopping it from dirt going down it, and so on and so on. And then from there, I'm breaking the whole thing down for you. Basically, the bottom of this is there's 4 pieces of 6-inch. Now I have plenty of 6-inch pipe, so I figured I'd use it for this. You're going to want to cut 5 pieces of 6-inch for the bottom of the barrel, 5 inches long. From here to here is 5 inches long, okay? 5 inches. The one that's going to sit in the center, you're going to have to cut a little bit of a notch out of it like this. And the reason for that is the inside of this barrel on the bottom has a rib on the bottom. If you're going to put anything in there, it's going to be cockeyed. If you want to use 4-inch, go ahead and use 4-inch. I wouldn't go any smaller than 4-inch for this particular design. I would suggest 6-inch if you can. Basically, this sits on top. You're not putting a hole in the middle, but we are going to drill holes all around this plate, little 1/2-inch holes, probably about 2 dozen of them, just to make sure the water drains out on the bottom. And then, of course, I have my landscape fabric. I'm going to cut a piece for here, like this, just enough to cover this whole thing, and then fold everything in together nice and even. I'm going to make that maybe run up the walls, you know, about a foot all the way around. That's just to keep the dirt from going down into the bottom and causing problems. So I'll cut a big enough piece for that. And that's basically it. Okay, so that's the spacers on the bottom. So I want to show you that really quick. You can see how there's a rib on the bottom over here. And I cut notches on the bottom of the inner tube so it doesn't get all floppy. You can see it's pretty stable. That's pretty solid down there. So I just want to show you that first. Alright, so here it is. And it's finally filled and completed. I did want to give you a look at it on the inside before I actually filled it with soil. And it turns out that the camera crapped out on me. So that is that. Anyway, here it is, filled with soil. These are the wicking tubes. We'll see how they do. You can see the soil is nice and moist. I got planted up here on the top. I got zucchinis. So we got to wait for them to come up. So this whole top is going to be covered with zucchinis. Keep them off the ground this year because usually when they're on the ground, the bugs up here seem to do a lot of damage. So let's see if keeping them off the ground does it any good this year. So we got the top with zucchinis. All around the side, this whole top row is nothing but iceberg lettuce. And I'm not expecting it to head, and I'm going to try to trim it as it starts getting leafy so it doesn't really head. And if it really does start to head, I'm going to just pick it down to one head and just let one head out of each one of those things come out. That'd probably look pretty cool, to be honest with you, but I'm not looking to get it to head. I just want for leaf. So we'll see how that works out. And then I got other stuff in here, other lettuces, mostly lettuce, endive. Got my tags in there. I got some extra tags up here. Here's my fill tube. And in the bottom here, you can see I had to put something in it to kind of make it lean over so it drains out towards the ground and not on here, bringing all that muddy water in there, staining up the sidewalk. Not that that's perfectly beautiful. I just don't want it to excess water to drain down into here. So we got it draining out there, and it's now level, and it's all good to go. This is the worm composter. I didn't begin to do anything with this yet. Once this thing blooms, I'll give you an update on it. We're going to do reviews on a lot of this stuff anyway. It's mostly all lettuces. Alright, so that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you on the next one.